All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolutely fascinating 800-year history behind Thailand's foundation and its identity. We're going to trace the incredible journey of a state that had to constantly evolve, shifting its politics, its economy, literally even changing its name, just to survive in a seriously unpredictable world.
Now, to really get Thailand today, we've got to start with a massive question. How exactly did this nation remain the only Southeast Asian country to never be colonized by European powers? I mean, while the British and French were just sweeping through all the neighboring territories, Siam, which is what it was called back then, somehow managed to keep its independence. And to answer that, well, we have to look back at centuries of some serious strategic adaptation.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll kick things off at the dawn of the Thai kingdoms, move through the Ayutthaya Golden Age, check out the rise of the Chakri dynasty, and see how they actually outsmarted Western colonialism. Then we'll unpack the 1932 Siamese Revolution before wrapping up with the forging of modern Thailand.
Okay, Part 1, the dawn of the Thai kingdoms and the foundations of a totally new identity. So back in the early 13th century, we see these massive migration waves of Thai people fleeing south, basically trying to outrun the advancing Mongol armies in China. Fast forward to 1238, and King Sit Inthratit unites a bunch of different groups to establish the independent Sukhothai Kingdom. This was huge because he successfully freed his people from the declining Khmer Empire. And then, pretty soon after that, under King Ramkhamhaeng, they create the Thai script, and Theravada Buddhism becomes the official state religion. They were essentially forging this incredibly unique cultural identity from scratch, one that actually still anchors the whole nation today.
And you know, the name of this kingdom is just so perfectly fitting. Sukhothai translates from Sanskrit to mean the dawn of happiness. And honestly, for a while there, it really was. This era was a literal golden age for them. We're talking master craftsmanship, stunning stone architecture, and the real birth of a unified Thai culture. It was just an incredibly vibrant time that left a permanent mark on Thai art and language.
Moving right along to Part 2, the Ayutthaya Golden Age, which brings us into a much more cosmopolitan era.
The contrast between these two periods is honestly pretty mind-blowing. In Sukhothai, the citizens basically had the ultimate 13th century customer service hotline. I mean, they could literally just walk up and ring a bell outside the palace, and the king would come out to personally resolve their problems, like a father governing his children. But Ayutthaya, totally different story. It was massive and highly centralized. It operated as an expansive mercantile absolutism, meaning power was locked tightly into these strict bureaucratic ministries, and the king held a virtual monopoly over the kingdom's immense wealth.
Founded by King Uythong in 1351, Ayutthaya stood incredibly strong for over 400 years. They heavily integrated Theravada Buddhism as the state religion and compiled the Dharmasastra. That was a comprehensive legal code so effective it was actually used all the way up until the 19th century. And get this, long before globalization was a buzzword, Ayutthaya was a massive international trade center. It was a true global city, pulling in merchants from China, Persia, and Europe. That is, until it tragically fell to Burmese forces and was completely destroyed in 1767.
That brings us to Part 3, the rise of the Chakri dynasty, and the monumental task of rebuilding the nation.
Right after the absolutely devastating fall of Ayutthaya, King Taksin miraculously managed to piece the shattered nation back together during the Thonburi period. But the real pivot happens in 1782. A former military leader from the old elite took the throne, General Phraya Chakri. He crowned himself Rama I and established the Chakri dynasty. And yes, that is the exact same royal house that continues to reign in Thailand right now. He also made the brilliant strategic move of shifting the capital down the Chao Phraya River to Bangkok, a spot that foreign traders already knew was the absolute key to Siam.
Okay, Part 4, outsmarting Western colonialism. This is where we hit the terrifying age of imperialism. 27. That is the staggering number of years King Mongkut, also known as Rama IV, spent as a Buddhist monk observing global affairs before he ever even took the throne. And he didn't just meditate. While in the monkhood, he was intensely studying Western science, languages, and watching the very aggressive expansion of foreign empires. So by the time he became king, he had this massive strategic advantage. He saw exactly what happened to neighbors like China and Burma when they foolishly tried to fight off the West with military force.
So knowing full well that armed resistance, which is equal total political annihilation, Rama IV completely flipped the script. He deliberately used economic concessions to buy his country time.
Step 1, he signed the 1855 Bowring Treaty with Great Britain to cool down the military threats. Step 2, he abolished the old royal warehouse monopoly and just threw the doors wide open to international free trade. And then Step 3, he and his son, Rama V, aggressively modernized Siam's infrastructure and centralized its administration from within. They were basically playing a high-stakes chess game, skillfully pitting the British and French against each other to keep Siam as a safe, independent buffer state.
And let me tell you, this strategic pivot to free trade absolutely supercharged the economy. Just listen to this quote from Dr. Dan Beach Bradley in 1866. Bangkok may be likened to a vast granary for the distribution of rice throughout Asia. It paints such a vivid picture. Dozens of foreign vessels and Siamese junks were just constantly anchored there, waiting for cargo. They were building new roads, bringing in modern rice milling tech, and foreign trading houses were just popping up overnight. To put that growth into perspective, rice exports didn't just tick up, they literally exploded by 25 times over the next century, even though the population had only doubled. That dramatic shift, moving away from strict royal monopolies to becoming this booming agricultural export powerhouse, is exactly what built the foundation for the modern Thai economy we see today.
Which leads us to Part 5, the 1932 Siamese Revolution, a time of massive internal transformation.
So, Siam manages to survive all these intense external threats from colonial empires, right? But then they abruptly face a massive internal shock. On June 24, 1932, a ridiculously swift, completely bloodless coup shattered 8 centuries of absolute monarchy. The whole thing was staged by a small, super-ambitious group of Paris-educated civilian students and military officers who called themselves the Kanaratsadan, or the Promoters. Driven by economic mismanagement during the Great Depression and a fierce desire for modernization, they seized power and actually forced the king to accept Siam's first-ever permanent constitution.
This moment completely rewrote the DNA of the state. Pre-1932, absolute power was held exclusively by the king and royal princes. Post-1932, Siam officially becomes a constitutional monarchy. But, and this is a big but, historians often point out that this really opened a Pandora's box, because that absolute power didn't suddenly get handed over to the everyday citizens. Instead, it shifted directly over to a sprawling bureaucracy and a highly influential military. That coup essentially hardwired the military in as Thailand's main engine for driving political change. And finally, Part 6, Forging Modern Thailand and the Creation of a Brand New National Identity.
In 1939, things shift again. The military leader Phibin Songkhram officially changes the country's name from Siam to Thailand, which beautifully translates to the land of the free. But make no mistake, this was way more than just a snappy rebranding campaign. It was a massive, top-down nationalist project. The real goal was to forcefully distance the modern state from its old dynastic past, modernize the culture of the people, and really consolidate authoritarian state building on a scale they hadn't seen before.
And through all of this, Thailand's incredible instinct for geopolitical survival just kept right on going through the 20th century. During World War II, they were initially neutral, controversially aligned with the Axis powers for a bit, but then nimbly dropped those wartime claims right after to quickly secure a spot in the UN. Then, during the Cold War, they fully embraced American influence and anti-communism. It was a strategic masterstroke that locked in military rule while simultaneously reviving the prestige of the monarchy. And from 1973 onward, well, it's been a turbulent, incredibly complex cycle of democratic movements, new constitutions, and recurring military coups.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this one question to chew on. Is Thailand's current political complexity, that ongoing intricate dance between democracy, the military, and the monarchy, is all of that simply the modern continuation of its ancient art of survival? From the ringing bell of Sukhothai to outsmarting colonial empires with free trade, all the way to the 1932 revolution, they've always found a way to adapt and endure. It's an amazing history. Thanks so much for joining me today.